The first one that we're adding is ASA. Any guesses what that stands for? Okay. Alright, and similar to side angle side, this one has something in the middle, right? So your S is going to be an included side. Which, just like yesterday, remember this means that that side is going to have to be between the two sets of congruent angles. Okay. So, if you have two sets of congruent angles, let's say maybe it's this angle here at the top, and then this angle down here at the bottom. Those two sets of angles are congruent. The side that's going to be congruent has to be the side that's in between those two angles. So it would have to be this side here that's congruent. All right. All right. Our next postulate is AAS. Right. Okay, and this one does not have the side in the middle, so therefore whenever you're marking it on the picture, the side will not be between the two angles. So maybe it's the same pairs of angles that are congruent. So now it has to be one of the other two sides that are congruent. It cannot be the one in between. It could be the one on the bottom or the one on the other side. It just cannot be the one in between.
So it doesn't matter which one?
No,
It just can't be.
it just can't be the one in between. So it could end up being either one in a picture that you're looking at, and it would still be congruent by angle side. Okay, so now that we've added those two postulates in, we know what they're going to look like. In these next examples, number 1 says to mark this figure with the angle congruence and side congruent symbols that you would need to prove that these triangles are congruent by angle, side, angle. So we're going to need two sets of angles and one side, and that side has to be the one in between the angles. Okay? So they want us to mark what we can on this figure. They don't have anything marked for us except those little arrows on the top and bottom lines. Does anybody remember what those arrows tell us about lines?
They're parallel.
Parallel, right. Which would make this diagonal line like a transversal. So that would mean I've got all my types of angle pairs. Okay, we're only worried about congruence right now. So we would only be worried about angles that prove congruency, which is alternate interior, alternate exterior, and corresponding. But only one of those have angles that are both inside the parallel lines. The alternate exterior would have my angles outside, and that's not helpful to us here, right? Corresponding would have one inside and one outside, so still not helpful. But alternate interior would have both of those angles inside, right? So I can mark some alternate interior angles to be congruent here and here. Okay, so we've got some alternate interior angles. Okay, is there anything else that we could mark?
The other.
Okay. So now I've got two sets of angle pairs that are congruent.
And the shared side.
Very good. We also can add in a shared side here. So I've got two sets of angles and one set of congruent sides. Is the side in the middle of the angles? Yes. So is this enough markings to prove it's congruent by angle, side, angle?
Yay.
Okay. All right. Let's look at another one. Okay, number 2 says to mark this figure with the angle congruence and side congruent symbols that you would need to prove these triangles are congruent by angle, angle, side. So this time I don't want the side to be in the middle. Okay? All right, so did they give us anything on this one?
Right.
Okay. So if these are both 90, then they must be congruent, right? So we've got one pair that was congruent that was given. Is there anything that we can mark here that they didn't mark for us?
The two angles inside close together are congruent.
Yes, very good. We know that these two angles here and here are congruent because those are what type of angles? Vertical, right. Okay, and remember, vertical angles don't need parallel lines to be there, right? Vertical angles will always be the ones across from each other, and they are always congruent. Very good. Okay, so we were able to add in the vertical angles. The 90-degree angles were already there. So the only thing that we don't have is the side pair, right? And it cannot be the side in the middle of the angles. Okay, well, in the middle of the angles would be between here and here, and here and here, right? So it just can't be that side. But, like Tessa pointed out in the one we were looking at above, that meant that there was options as to where the others could be, right? So it could be this set, or it could be the hypotenuse. Doesn't necessarily matter, okay? But this is what was missing that we had to add in. So this was still needed. Okay? All right, so yesterday is when we introduced that idea of a shared side. We said we can always add that in, even if it's not marked, because those will be congruent no matter what. Okay, and then we also, just on these last two problems, added in two types of different angles. Okay, the first one that they have written here are those angles that are directly across from each other, which we said are good. Okay, and the other type you can only add if they tell you you have parallel lines, which they do by adding those arrows on there. And what type can we add in then? Good. Okay, so once you have those, if you will flip it over onto the back, on these next set of problems, they tell you to look for the additional information that you would need in order to prove each pair of these triangles is congruent by whatever postulate they say. Okay? So there's going to be something missing. We're going to tell them what's missing, what needs to be marked congruent so that it will be true. Okay, so on number 3, what did they mark for us, or what's given? Okay, so we were given, or they marked for us, the right angles. Okay, is there anything not marked that we can assume and we know is true?
Shared side.
Shared side, okay. So I can assume the shared side. Okay, and I'm supposed to be proving that these are congruent by angle, angle, side. So I still need one more what?
Angle.
Angle. Okay, so what's needed is another angle. Specifically an angle that won't put that shared side in the middle, right? So does it matter which ones we pick?
No, because if you put it in the middle.
Right, either way, the side won't end up in the middle. So it doesn't necessarily matter which ones you pick. You just need to make sure you pick ones that are corresponding. Okay? So if I picked K up here, I'd be picking the angle below at M. Right? Okay, so I would make the statement that we need angle, I'm going to call this one up here, JKL, has to be congruent to angle LMK. And then this would be true by angle, angle, side. Okay. What about on number 4? Did they mark anything or give us anything on number 4? Yes. What did they give us? A pair of congruent angles. Good. Okay, is there anything that they didn't mark that we can assume to be congruent? Shared side. Good. Okay, so we've got one pair of angles, one side. So what do I still need?
Another angle.
Another angle. Good. This time, we want the side to be in the middle of the angles, right? So what angles am I going to have to pick to keep the side in between them? This one here. Okay, so that would,
I'm just kidding, my bad. YLA.
yes, that would work. Okay, so angle CYL is this one down here, needs to be congruent to angle ALY, which would be the other one across from it. That keeps that side in the middle.
It'd be the one that you said AOI would be YON.
Yes, you can switch around the first and last letter, but the L has to be in the middle. Okay. On number 5, what's given to us or marked for us on number 5? The right angles, good. Okay. So is there anything not marked that we can add in? Shared side. Okay. And this time we want them to be congruent by angle, angle, side. So what do we still need? Another angle. But in this case, we don't want the side to be in the middle, right? So what angle am I going to have to pick so that the side doesn't end up in the middle? RAC, okay, would be this angle here, and okay. Now in this case, you actually could name those angles with just one letter because they're the only ones that exist there. We couldn't do that up here because there was 2 angles at M and 2 angles at K. But since these are the only ones at P and A, you can just name them angle P and angle A are what needs to be congruent. All right. Okay, on number 6, what is given to us on number 6? A pair of congruent angles. Good. Okay, anything we can add in? Another shared side. So what are we still going to need? Another angle. Okay, so this time it is angle, side, angle, meaning the side has to be in the middle of the angles. So what angles am I going to have to pick to make that true? The ones that we assume will probably be right angles, right? Here and here. So that's both at B, so I am going to have to name it with 3 letters this time. Angle A, B, D needs to be congruent to angle C, B, D. Right? Okay. All right, on number 7, it says if triangle JKL is congruent to triangle ABC, angle J is 37, angle B is 64, and angle C is 3x plus 52. They want us to find the value of x and the measure of angle C. So, just like yesterday, the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and draw these 2 triangles. And then I'm going to go in and label them. Remember, we have to put corresponding letters in corresponding places. So if I name this one JKL, what corresponds with J? And what corresponds with L?
B.
C.
C.
And then that would put my B up here, right? Okay. So now I'm going to go plug in or substitute in all that information in my drawing. So I know angle J here is 37 degrees. Angle B up here, 64 degrees. And then angle C, this one right here, is 3x plus 52 degrees. Okay, and we're supposed to be setting something up to solve for x. So this one's not quite like yesterday. We don't just have something that's definitely congruent to that piece, right? So what do you guys know? What can we do here?
J's
Mm-hmm.
corresponding.
You have them the congruent triangles, so you
Yes, we can put them all together. I heard somebody saying, you know, J and A are congruent, right? Okay, so since angle J is congruent to angle A, then we know that angle A is 37. Okay, and then, like Taylor was saying, that means we can add these all up, right? We know that a triangle's angle sum is always what?
184.
Right. Add them all up. And set them equal to 180. All right, so if I'm going to solve that, what do I want to do first? Okay, so I'm going to combine all of my constants, 37, 64, and 52. What's that going to give us? How much? 153. So I have 3x plus 153 equals 180. Okay. And then what do we need to do? Subtract 153. So I'll have 3x is equal to, good. So x must be,
9. Oh my gosh.
okay. So now I know that x is 9. What's the other thing they said they wanted us to tell them? Right, so yes, we do need to substitute. Very good. So the measure of angle C is that 3x, which now we know x is 9, plus 52. So the measure of angle C must be, good.